All righty, I'll go ahead and call us to order. Can we do the roll call, please?
Councilmember Altman,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Tinkler. Here. And Mayor Wright.
Here. And let's move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. Pledge of Allegiance. Flag. Righty. Looks like we have no ceremonial items or reports or presentations today, so I'll move right into the public comment period. Any member of the audience is invited to address the City Council on any matter that is within the jurisdiction of the City of Crescent City. Comments of public interest or on matters appearing on the agenda are accepted. Note, however, that the council is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on non-agendized items. Such items can be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on a future agenda. All comments shall be directed toward the entire council, and any comments that are not at the podium are out of order and will not be a part of the public record. After receiving recognition from the mayor, please state your name and city or county residency for the record. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes. The public is additionally allotted 3 minutes each in which to speak on any item on the agenda prior to any action taken by the council. Do I have any public comment? What? Yes, sir.
My name is Gordon Pfeffer. Before the timer starts, I would like to say for the issues that I want to talk about, 3 minutes is completely insufficient, but I will try to stick to it. But bear with me if I might be
this time of year.
seconds longer. Anyway, like I said, my name is Gordon Pfeffer. I'm a building owner at 3rd and L Street. I'm the Del Norte Pride recipient from 2015. My building is the 2-story building that's facing the 101 South, and it's kitty corner to the grocery outlet, big brown 2-story building. I'm here to talk about the rain event that occurred on October 13th. There was 3+ inches of rain, happened early in the morning over a course of 2 to 3 hours. The storm drains were overwhelmed. There was significant flooding. 101 was flooded. Various parts of downtown were flooded. My neighbor, the Advantage Rental Furniture Store, dramatically flooded. 5 or 6 or more buildings were seriously impacted. The impact to my building, serious and significant. I'm the landlord for 2 retail stores, 1 office space. Like I said, they were significantly damaged. When the first person arrived at 8 o'clock in the morning, there was 1 or 2 inches of water in their shop. I'm suspecting that there could have been 3 to 5 inches of water from the flood in my building during the highest part of the flood time. And that was early morning. We don't know that. Anyway, I want to let you know that I have spent 3 weeks of restoration and rehabilitation. It's still in progress on that. I've borne $15,000 to $18,000 of accrued costs. That's on me. I've been doing much of the work. I'm exhausted, recovering, but I am exhausted. I've spent literally 3 weeks, 8 to 10 hours a day doing the work myself, because guess what? My insurance company advised me when I filed a claim a day or so after, you better proceed as if your claim is going to be denied. Well, I'm fully anticipating that claim is going to be denied. Okay, so this whole experience for me, it's been exhausting. It's been a nightmare. There's been carpets, flooring ripped out, sheetrock ripped out, bills. I'm here to let you guys know that this was a major event for downtown and a major event in my life. I want to make some assumption that the storm drain systems are affected by higher tides. The tide at that time was 5.8, and that's according to Crescent City Tides. This rare event is becoming more commonplace with climate change. Coincidentally, Crescent City is looking to apply for a grant tonight on rising sea levels and adaptations to how to mitigate with rising sea levels. Okay, well, let's put two and two together. Sea levels rising, the climate change is creating more intense and more frequent storms. Our storm drains are dependent on being efficient due to the fact that they are draining into the ocean. They don't drain at full capacity or as effectively or become overwhelmed at high tides. It's not a good scenario for downtown.
Thank you for your public comment.
Say it again.
Thank you for your public comment. Your time was up. I let you finish that thought you were on.
I do have some suggestions.
Could you get an email or maybe an appointment with City Manager Weir?
Well, I'd like to make it on the public record. My suggestions will take 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Go ahead.
Solutions. Let's alert the community when a major flood or water event's happening. We have a community alert system. Let's get into storm drain maintenance, make sure it's regular, frequent. Let's look at grants to increase storm drain capacity. Maybe we need more pumps to pump water through the storm drains when there's a high tide event going on, which is going to be happening more and more frequently. If the flood likelihood is dependent on tides, how do we mitigate this? I'm asking you guys to take a serious look at this. This, like I said, has been horrible circumstances for me and many other people. I would just like to not have it happen again. I thank you for your time and look for the city and the city departments, the city council to be proactive so that we can have a viable downtown that's not going to be flooded every major storm event when the tides are high. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comments.
Sam Strait County. Just a bit of public information. I have it on good authority that we no longer have a newspaper of record in the county. You may wish to check into that because I believe the current version of the triplicate does not meet the standards for being a newspaper of public record. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We just, City Manager, what are we doing about that? Because I was just reading an email about it.
Yes, I received an email also this morning about that. So we are verifying current status and take action that's appropriate and necessary. Then, it is one of the, not this particular reason, but why we did want to go ahead and move forward with a plan B for notification in case there wasn't.
Very good.
Still verifying.
Thanks, sir. Any other public comment? All righty. I'll go ahead and close public comments and I'll bring it back to the consent calendar. So item number 1 is the warrants claims list for the period ending October 18th, 2025 through, not ending, the period October 18th, 2025 through October 31st, 2025. Council meeting minutes is item number 2 for November 3rd, 2025. Item number 3, the payroll report for the period ending November 1st, 2025, paid November 7th, 2025. Number 4, CAL FIRE agreement and budget adjustment by way of resolution number 2025-50. Item number 5, surplus vehicles. Item number 6, budget amendment for water main repair within the Church Tree Community Services District by way of resolution number 2025-51. And item number 7, fiscal year 2025-26 budget update for multi-year projects by way of resolution number 2025-52. Council, did anybody want to pull any of these for further discussion? Let me take public comment on these items, see if there's anybody in the audience that wants to talk about them. Seeing no public comment, I'll bring it back for a motion.
Motion to approve consent calendar.
I second that.
All right, I got a motion in a second. Please pull the vote.
Councilmember Altman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tinkler,
Yes.
Mayor Wright.
Yes. Righty, looks like we have no public hearings. And we have one item on continuing business, item number 8, redundant well support services contract award.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Wright. This item has been before the council in the past where we talked about the project as a whole. This particular item is a contract award with GHD for the design portion. And we have Director Yeager here to tell you a little bit more of the details about this first phase.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Excuse me. Good evening, Mayor and Council. See you all again. So this is the famous, infamous redundant well project. No, it's a positive thing. It just we are beginning it. Looking back at pictures for Rainy, this was actually the Rainy structure was built in 1958. And shortly thereafter, in January of 59, it got tested by the river. Yep. Bit of a high run there. This project, so basically is we all should know or do know that the water for the supply for the city of Crescent City and all our 4,000 plus customers comes to the Rainy collector, which is out there in the Smith River, which is the structure we just looked at. Running from the Rainy collector, it goes to basically along Relham Road and winds up at the chlorination building as shown there on the map. The redundant well site is adjacent to that pond-looking area, gravel pit. That's the old hole pit. And the city owns the property just on the other side of the blue line from that. So that is the course of the water main. So the nice thing about this site is it is adjacent to the existing main feeder from the Rainy collector. And then any water that we got from this site would also be put into the line prior to the chlorination building. So the infrastructure required is extremely minimal. That's the ideal thing about this site. So it's not in the river. It provides redundant well, therefore provides us redundancy in case we do need to not take water from the river. I believe the water we keep in our 2 tanks lasts about 3 to 4 days on standard usage. So if something was to happen, heaven forbid, knock on wood stuff, but if something happened in the river, we couldn't take water from the river, whatever, we have 3 to 4 days supply. But it's 3 to 4 days supply. So if the idea here is to take water from an alternate source that's not directly related to the river, the same aquifer essentially, but not in the river. So it would be, be a different source per se that would be easily added to our existing collection system. So as Eric had mentioned, city manager mentioned that we had gone through council and quite a ways back, and the city went after a grant. It got cut down severely, but we were awarded $500,000. The initial plan was to go for a temporary well and then possibly, a test well and a test well, and with the process, we've streamlined this, and I'll cover that here in a minute. So the grant got reduced to $500,000, which we have through Elk Valley Rancheria. And then we asked for and received $153,000 from the council from the water fund. So that gives us the total budget of $653,000. We went out through this process, there are several steps. We have to obviously do the well analysis and, it's not just putting in a pipe in the ground and pumping the water. It's a little more complicated than that. We'll cover that as well. So we put out a request for qualifications in May. I got 2 proposals back and went through some criteria that we had to score the proposals, and we went with GHD. And their contract currently sits at $272,000 of the 600 as well. So what do we need for this contract? So that's basically what's in front of you tonight is approving the contract for GHD. But I kind of want to explain what they're covering and then also kind of refresh the whole project here. So GHD, so the phase 1 would be getting the contract. We received that. Phase 2 of the project is to go through these steps. We've got to get the permitting, basically for GHD to be the well permit. We are going to go out to contract for a well to be installed. So GHDs can produce the bid documents. They will also do the construction management on the well installation. And then the big part of this process and the seasonalness of it, like we're not doing now, is we have to do analysis of the wells when the water table is lower, right? Because we don't want to do it in winter. Everything looks rosy in winter, but so they'll go out and they'll do some analysis on surrounding existing wells, make contact with those folks, do some monitoring. We'll run the well, see if that far well impacts those, just lower the water table. So that's part of the analysis. And the other part of the analysis is the well going to generate enough water to make it a viable source. So that's basically phase 2, and looking at the calendar there. So by this time next year, we will know if we have a viable well. So if we determine that it is a viable well, then GHG will continue the process. If we don't, just kind of deal with the money for a second. If we've been made assured from the grant lender or the grantor that since they only gave us one well instead of two, the idea was with the larger grant request that we have multiple test wells if need be. We're basically sinking instead of doing a small 6 or 8 inch test well, we're going to do a 12-inch well. And so the 12-inch test well will be our production well due to the limitations of the grant funding. So we took a $1-something million project and shrunk it down to do one test well. So since they've only budgeted for us one test well, if this well is not viable, then the project ends essentially, and we get reimbursed by the grantor. If it is a viable well, and it should be, it's in the aquifer, it's adjacent to the river, the anticipation is strong, that it's the likelihood that it is a good site. So at that point, in this phase 3, GHG will continue, will produce the plans and specs for the bid job that'll be to connect this well and the pump house associated with it. And there's also be another contract for the telemetry, or the SCADA as we call it. And so that'll be directed or designed the following year and through July of 2027. I don't know if that all made sense. Any questions?
Council question?
So in summary, back to the initial 653,000, 272, about 273,000 will be the GHG contract. It is on a hourly basis, so we're hoping that the number is conservative. We will run under that. The well budget that's in this is $150,000. I talked to a local well driller regarding this project, but also pricing. We're probably looking at the $100,000 to $150,000 range. So hopefully that number is conservative. That leaves us $183,000 or so looking at what it's going to cost to connect this well to the existing line. And so theoretically, it should work. We have a little bit of contingency, not a lot of contingency. And then also, since this project is so far out in terms of getting it built and the original cost, this all started in 23, 24, now we're 25, we're talking 26, 27 construction costs. So there is potential that we won't get that far, but we will see after phase 1 and phase 2. And obviously, if we don't have enough money to cover phase 3, then we'll come back to council and decide what we want to do in terms of that. So before you tonight is back as already written, is to approve and authorize the city manager to sign the professional service agreement with GHD and to authorize the city manager to write some change orders to $60,000.
Council, any further questions? All righty, let's see if we got any public comment. Not seeing any public comment. Bring it back for any further council discussion or a motion, or a motion.
Okay, let's see here. Motion to approve and authorize the city manager to sign a professional services agreement with GHD for the design and support services for the installation of a redundant water well. Part 2 is authorize the city manager to approve and sign change orders in an aggregate amount not to exceed $60,000 or a single charge change order not to exceed $20,000.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Please pull the vote.
Councilmember Altman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tinkler. Yes. Mayor Wright.
Yes. Righty. We're down to new business. Item number 9, California Department of Transportation Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Application to complete the Redwood Highway Multimodal Transportation and Land Use Plan. I feel like that needs an acronym or something with how long that was, but okay.
Yeah, and and we do have a little acronym there again, Mount Loop.
Oh,
maybe,
Mount
right?
Loop right there. I see it.
Yep.
Just kidding.
So
Yep, Mount Loop.
MTLUP, as everybody knows, is now known as the Multimodal Transportation Land Use Plan
Okay,
Grant.
so the Redwood Highway Mount Loop. Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, I'll remember that.
All right, but no, this is another opportunity. And so as we were planning and looking at, the downtown and some of those areas with our downtown master plan, I want to thank everybody that came out to those public meetings last week. A big part of the experience when you come into Crescent City is the highway corridor. That highway corridor is not part of, it is the downtown, but it's not really part of the downtown, as you have Caltrans and you have the highway facilities coming through there. So it does really need its own plan, and that's really what this is. And so Director Yeager was part of the TAC committee with the Del Norte Local Transportation Commission. There are representatives from Caltrans there as well, and they were actually the ones that alerted us to this grant opportunity. So we've been working with Caltrans as we're thinking about submitting this application and then bringing it before you tonight. So the application in itself is really to address safety and accessibility for all users. It's to address the multimodal, or basically all modes of transportation is really what that means. So pedestrian, bicycle, vehicles, as they're trying to navigate that highway corridor. And then you also have the links to the downtown and the harbor as you're working your way through. And then what we're talking about doing is really making it so it's conducive to that experience as you're coming through. So this is a map as you're looking at the different areas of town. So you have downtown, you have the harbor district as you're coming in. But as you try to navigate this, it's really hard as you're getting into town to realize that you're even really coming in. And then once you hit the S curve, it's hard to navigate that anyway. And then you have a area that's really wide with a lot of hardscape. So pavement, sidewalk, buildings. It doesn't really feel like you've entered into a downtown area or a different district as you're coming in. You also have major collector streets of our community that intersect with the highway. So you have collector streets with Front Street. You have 3rd Street that's designated as a collector street or a major street for our town, 5th Street and 9th that all intersect. And then when you start to look at the uses of our town, it's really the highway really bisects and is a barrier for a lot of people with housing and where they live at, especially senior housing or affordable housing, to get to some of our amenities like grocery stores and really the Jed Smith Shopping Center on this side. And so what this project would do is it would look at different ways to try to mitigate those. Part of the downtown thought process also included this a little bit, that we needed to have more greenery. And you see that in a lot of downtowns where you can have like the bump outs or the bulb outs. We have 3 lanes heading in the northbound direction. Some of the early conversations have been around, can we actually reduce one of those lanes? The lane doesn't start until right in the middle of this S curve, goes right through this area. It's only on one stretch. It's only on the northbound. It's not on the southbound, then ends at 9th. So do we really need to pick up that lane, or can we use that space to have more of these bulb outs, more greenery, wider sidewalks on either side, which then would also reduce the amount of highway that you have to cross when you're trying to cross that from a pedestrian standpoint. The 3rd lane also, if you can remember, as you're picking it up along this S curve here, it actually starts right in the middle of the S curve. And so it's hard to navigate from a car standpoint. If you are making that turn on the front, you have to put your blinker on and try to get in that turn lane right in the middle of the S curve. And then from a pedestrian or somebody trying to cross, you don't know if that car is really going to be coming and turning on the front, or if they're going straight. If you happen to be in the right-hand lane and want to make that, now you have to get over 3 lanes. So there are a lot of reasons why we want to take a look at this. And this grant does exactly that. But it's not going to be inexpensive. In order to look at a highway, especially this big of a section, you really do need to have a good idea of the traffic volumes, traffic engineering, the different survey points as you're running through, the different concepts, a lot of community engagement. And so for this, we're estimating a total cost of approximately total grant of $443,353. Of that, there's 11.47% match. So that equals $50,853. I think conservatively from a staff level, it's going to take us about 6,500 or so that we think, just with Bridget's time, my time, Dave's time, that we'll be able to have as just in kind. And then Director Yeager also talked to Tamara Layton, the Executive Director of Local Transportation. And if the council approves this application, she would take an item before the Local Transportation Commission to allocate $44,352 of local transportation funds to then be the other match. So it wouldn't actually cost the city anything out of general fund if that all goes through that way. So that's sort of the nuts and bolts of it. We are talking to RCT as well, and they might be a grant application partner. So we're looking at that. This has an extremely tight time frame on it, which is a little bit problematic. The grant application is due November 21st. And so we are running 90 miles an hour, and if I had hair, it would be on fire. So, so yeah, so there's a lot to come together. That's where we might not have the joint application with RCT, but we certainly have their letter of support. We have support letters from Chamber, Delaware County, actually approved a support letter at their last meeting as well. And Bridget has been working very hard to try to pull this all together. That's it in a
Council,
nutshell.
any questions?
No, I do have a comment. I very much support this. I think it would be it's an exciting time to not only address safety issues, but aesthetic issues and moving forward. As you'll hear me speak on another item today, I really strongly feel that people make decisions every day about where to live or where to vacation based on the aesthetics of a place and its distinctiveness. And I think this could be not only a great safety improvement, but also just visually make our area so much more attractive. You're coming in. We all know it's beautiful when you get off the highway, but the highway itself through kind of a concrete jungle is not, it's not particularly, you know, it doesn't say, yay, I want let's vacation here. So I really, really hope that we can get some good information from this study and move forward.
This will be a pretty competitive grant, we think, and like I say, we're putting together an application quickly, but nonetheless, if we don't take this shot, we won't have the funding. If we take the shot, there's a possibility of getting the funding. It was also listed in our general plan as a priority project, listed in our economic development strategic action plan, mentioned again in the downtown. So it certainly is one of those that we need to continue to keep our eye on, continue to take shots like this to try to get it to that next phase.
You're talking about eliminating on the left side as you're driving?
What it would end up doing is probably centering the lanes is probably what it would do. So right now you have 3 lanes.
Yeah.
If they did eliminate that left lane, basically, then it would just kind of scoop both lanes over is what I think would happen. And then you'd be able to have like those bulb outs and more greenery on that side to have a little bit of a barrier. So it might be like only 5 or 6 feet. And then you'd have your sidewalk, but there would be a separation between the sidewalks, pedestrians, and the highway itself as you're coming in, allowing for greenery, signage, right, all those things, and kind of slowing people down as it narrows it up.
All righty, let's see if we got any public comments.
Just have a question. Sam Strait County. This is a plan. It's not, nothing actually happens other than you're making a plan. You're going to spend $500,000 on a plan to facilitate traffic going through Crescent City and provide safety and aesthetics and some sort of a vegetation barrier on what would it be, on the right-hand side, where you've got a significant number of businesses along that right-hand side. I don't know where the concrete tunnel comes from, but I've lived here for 50 years and I don't appreciate that connotation as Crescent City being a concrete tunnel along 101. I don't understand why it's costing so much for a plan, I guess is what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is the application for the grant, right? Specifically,
This would be to apply for those dollars.
apply for them to
Yes.
do the
and-
plan to make it more green.
And this would, and the plan would get us to about 10%, but it would have several concepts. It would have a lot of community outreach. It would have preliminary environmental assessment and a lot of traffic engineering and working with Caltrans to make sure the plan is viable from that.
Making a shovel-ready project or close to it.
Doesn't quite get us to shovel ready, so we'd still need to do the design and the specifications, and the estimate piece of it. But this would get us to that point that we would have a viable project that's fully vetted and could take that next step.
And I would make the assumption, since the grant's coming from Caltrans themselves, that it would be quick and painless to get this all done, right?
Yes, although Caltrans does have many different departments, but you know, the planning department, and then you have the traffic safety and whatnot, but they would certainly be able to pull all of those different departments together and more streamline than an outside.
Did we have any other public comment? All right, I'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the council.
Okay, let's see here. Mayor, make a motion that we direct staff to prepare an application for the California Department of Transportation funding through the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant Program for the Redwood Highway Multimodal Transportation and Land Use Plan in the amount of $443,353.
Mount Loop. Sorry,
I second that.
please pull the.
Councilmember Altman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tinkler,
Yes.
Mayor Wright.
Yes. Oh, the acronyms, they're great. Item number 10, signs regulation update to Muni Code, chapter 17.39. City Attorney Rice. Hello.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I have some slides to go along with this presentation. Let's start off with a little bit of background, how we got here with the sign regulations. Last November, the city issued a sign permit for a new sign, a digital sign at Tsunami Lanes Bowling Alley. The application itself did not indicate that the sign would display off-site advertising, images that move, or that the sign would be displaying rotating images. So the permit was issued and the sign was installed, and it wasn't until after that it was noticed that the sign had certain characteristics were not currently allowed by our code. So those specifically include off-site advertising, flashing lights, and changing of color intensity. The permittee, the Tsunami Lanes Bowling Alley owner, was offered two pathways forward. One was to apply for a variance. Well, one option is to take the sign down. Another option is to apply for a variance. Third option would be to apply for an amendment to the sign regulations. So he decided to apply for an amendment to the sign regulations, and that's how we got where we are this evening. On October 16th, the Planning Commission made a recommendation for updates to the zoning code. And those include regulations specific for digital signs. So the displays can contain static messages only, no flashing or scrolling, change no more than once every 15 seconds. And any digital signs within 1,000 feet of Highway 101 may need a Caltrans permit. So that's alerting the permittees that they may need a Caltrans permit for that. Also illumination. So there are limitations on how bright the sign can be. In the daytime, it's up to 10,000 nits. Non-daylight hours is 160 nits. And these signs come telling you, how many nits the output is. And also the sign must have a light sensing device to automatically adjust its brightness. So new regulations specific to off-site advertising. So this includes digital signs as well as non-digital signs. So they will be allowed in the C2 zone only, at least that's the recommendation. And the C2 zone is everything you see in orange on this map. So it's basically the highway corridor and up North Crest. In addition, there's a limit of 2 off-site advertising signs per business. The off-site advertising signs are limited to 100 square feet max. And the off-site advertising counts towards the allowable sign area for the business. So the way our sign ordinance is written is based on your, linear square feet of your business or your parcel. On the road frontage, you get a certain amount of signage. So each business has a calculated amount of signage they're allowed to have, and what this is saying is this type of sign would count towards that allowable sign area.
Real quick before you move on. So,
Mhm.
and so we're the two within city limits total. So we already have one, so there'd be another. Is that? what
No,
we're
that's
using?
that's two per business. Two per business. Yeah, I had to shorten up my words to get.
It's all good.
Yeah, so that's the gist of what's before you tonight. Those are the recommendations that the planning commission made.
I had a question about the 100 square feet max. I'm not, maybe someone who's more into construction can help me. It's hard for me to visualize what 100 square feet is. Is that a kind of a common size of a living room? I mean, it seems really big to me, but
We had an estimate on the fairgrounds digital sign.
So the sign on the bowling alley, the new sign, the one that
yeah,
started this conversation, that's 4x8, so that's 32 square feet.
okay.
So 100 square feet would be about 3 times that size. The one at the fairgrounds, from our estimates, and asked Director Yeager to send somebody out to try to get us an approximate size on that, somewhere around 4 feet tall by 15 feet, or 5 by 15. So that would be 60, maybe 75 square feet, but it's really, really long.
Yeah.
It looks bigger than that because it actually has some permanent signs,
Yeah.
both above and below their digital sign. So your typical 100, right, is 10 by 10. You're talking.
It's about the size of a billboard, maybe?
Probably depending on where that's at,
Yeah.
a smaller
Yeah.
billboard. I
That's
mean,
kind of-
sometimes random billboards.
It would be a small billboard.
Okay.
As if you're thinking of like highway billboards, they're generally a lot larger, but
Okay.
100 square feet still. A lot of how you perceive the size is going to be how close it is to the roadway.
And the key thing I think to think about on this is digital signs, they're not new, but they are, this would allow them to come into Crescent City. Fairgrounds was on state property, not really applicable to this ordinance. So as this sign then comes in, if it were approved as stated, this sign would be allowed, but then they would also be allowed on adjacent properties all the way down. So you could have 100 square foot digital sign on every property all the way up and down 101 and all throughout the C2 only zone. A big part of this is that offsite advertising. It doesn't only advertise your business, but it also is could advertise other business. And, you know, as you look at the one on the bowling alley, it by itself is one thing. When you're thinking about it in the context of that sign on every business coming down, is quite a different experience coming through the 101 or into our town. The C2 also goes a few blocks in and covers a portion of the downtown. So just food for thought on that side of things. The Planning Commission discussed it somewhat. The original size before the Planning Commission was actually 200 square feet. They reduced it down to 100. But certainly if you're looking at signs that are just like the 4x8, like the one on the bowling alley, that's 32 square feet. Other sort of things to consider or direction for staff, as this is discussion only tonight. And so that's really what this is about, is to get council feedback, direction, and then we can come back with other.
Council, any questions?
Comment. Well, bear with me. I have a lot of comments on this. I'm very much against this amendment to our zoning. I think it goes against all sorts of efforts we are currently making and money that we are spending to do the opposite, to make our corridor, both our downtown and our highway corridor more appealing. And I can't see how this would do anything but damage the scenic quality of our community. done a lot of homework on this way before I was even on the city council. I was aware of that this is an issue across our country, not only digital signs, but digital billboards. Many cities have moved to prohibit them entirely, including big cities such as Los Angeles. And there's reasons for them. One, if you've driven by the one at Tsunami Lanes, it's distracting to drivers. So I think there's a safety issue. I also feel like it's wasting, it's a waste of energy. They take a lot of energy to power to get that kind of illumination. And we're in an area that's coastal, so the night sky, I know we already have, many things that are difficult to control about night sky, but particularly in a coastal area, trying to do whatever we can to limit night sky pollution is really, really important ecologically. I think billboards are not only a form of night sky pollution, light pollution, and these digital signs are also a form of visual pollution. And when you think of communities that have not controlled this well, that's, they are commonly, there's a real problem with the blight of having too much information, too many signs at a time when we're working really hard with our downtown visioning project and Front Street, and now this highway safety issue and grant, trying really hard to move forward to modernize and improve not only the safety, but the looks of our community. And I think that one of the things that concerns me is that as a town whose economy depends a lot on tourism, these kind of signs, when they accumulate, it's a lot of commercialism. And I think it detracts from the idea that we are a distinct community. Tourists, they come to a community that looks like just every other community. There's no desire to be here. What will make us stand out is our distinctiveness, the beauty not only of our natural surroundings, but the aesthetics of the town itself. And the other thing, there's many other reasons why I dislike them, but I also just don't think that they've proven to be good for business. They're not very effective advertising. I've done some homework on this. They say about 2% of, you're only about like 2% of the effective advertising that's available in these modern times. People are getting their information about where they're going to stay in a motel, what restaurant they're going to eat at, what clothing store they're going to go to, et cetera. They get that in very many different ways than digital signs and billboards. I think it'd be a step backward for us to actually add to the visual clutter of our community. I don't see any positive reason for allowing them.
Anything else? All right, any public comment? All right, seeing none. Personally, how I feel about it is I think 100 square feet is entirely too large. I'm not opposed to the signs, but I think 100, that's really big. I think the size of the one that's on the bowling alley is fine. I kind of agree with it not being a good advertiser personally, because I've stopped looking at it. I couldn't tell you what's on that thing. I drive by it at least twice a day, every day. I don't know what's on it, but 100 square feet is way too big, in my opinion. I guess I think that 8x4, I think that's fine. Personally, it's my opinion on it.
The other item the council could consider, as far as just the density of signs, is you could put a distance. Once one's allowed, you could have a certain distance before you had another one. So that could be a way to reduce that size, not only by the size, but then the just amount of signs that you have. And then, Martha, in regard to this sign itself, gosh, I had something, I forgot it. I'll take it back to the council and see what comes back.
Okay.
I just don't, I totally agree that 100 square feet is too big, but I think any of them are too big. So that is I absolutely don't see any purpose for them. They're as distracting to me for drivers. I recently just actually 2 days ago had two teenagers well, one was driving the car, other was in the front street. I'm helping them learn how to drive, and we drove by that. And the, yes, looking up at that. And so we had a discussion of why you don't look at your cell phones and you don't look at flashing signs like that. So I strongly feel like it's not, we already have discussed some of the safety issues of the highway. Ironically, we discussed that right before this. You're already talking about people having a hard time crossing the highway to get to supermarkets and other shopping. I can't see this being a positive look for our community in any way.
Did come back to me what I was going to talk about, and it was actually on the subject of attractiveness. And so with this, it has to stay on the message itself for 15 seconds, cannot have graphics, right? Where you're like changing graphics. So the graphics emotions got to be basically static. And then my question for Martha, currently in our code, it talks about only being lit during the operational hours of the business. Is that in or out on this? What's
Yes, that is, I believe, also contained in here.
part of it when that sign on the bowling alley was first erected? It was on, I think it was on all the time. It was on definitely in the early morning hours and pretty distracting at that point in time. So there's other ways to try to mitigate when it's on, if the council wanted to give direction.
Well, I'm for local business and we always talk about it. But it seems like we make it harder and harder for a local business to be a business in this small town. And they close down left and right. I just heard about another business today. And it's hard for them to market themselves. And the ridiculousness behind getting a sign on 101 is just, I mean, you have to get approval from the Coastal Commission, the Department of Transportation, and our little group too. I mean, it's almost impossible. I doubt the sign will be allowed in the end anyway, but my opinion is we should make it impossible for a small business to market themselves. I mean, especially like a waning business like bowling. There just isn't popular as it was like in 1950, you know? So, I mean, if you're going to be taking on a risky business like bowling alley, you should be able to have a sign. And if you're driving and you're looking at signs, then, you know, maybe you need a refresher course or something. Yeah, I got to keep your eyes on the road. So that's my opinion. I don't know what kind of direction to give you guys on that because
When do we start size?
I'm not against a company or a business advertising by putting a sign on saying, I am a bowling alley, what have you. I'm against having what is large, basically a large TV. You can imagine dozens and dozens of these large TVs as you drive through Crescent City. And they're not actually advertising their own business, they're advertising other businesses. So, and there's lots and lots of evidence that I'm trying to help the economy of this area. I'm trying to help businesses because one of the things that is fundamentally important to our economic well-being is the image of our community. I can't emphasize that enough. Can't emphasize that enough. And I don't think in any way these digital signs are going to somehow keep a business from going out of business or not. It's not about saying you can't advertise your own business. It's about whether you want to have a bunch of commercials on big giant TVs as you drive through Crescent City.
I mean, a lot of signs are lit up. I don't see a big difference. So, but I'm not here to argue with council or Mayor Pro Tem Tinkler. I just am saying my opinion and I respect her opinion too. So
So a 10 by 10 sign, too big, too small? What are you thinking? We're looking for direction for the,
well, that sign's the size of a sheet of plywood. I mean, that's plenty big, you know, and Harbor Freight once asked for a special size sign and we allowed it a million years ago when I was on planning commission. So there are ways to get larger signs if you appeal to the planning commission. So it's not like absolutely not bigger than, you know, what, 32 square feet. It's just it's just a guideline, you know, but I don't understand the outlawing of a digital sign when you have like gigantic Safeway signs lit up and there's signs all over town at night lit up. And it's kind of nice because we don't have a lot of street lighting, you know what I mean? So you can actually see where you're going. And I understand the crosswalk problem all the way through that corridor because people just jump out. They just jump out there.
yes, they do.
We almost need the blinking light buttons because especially at night, they're wearing all black and they just jump right out there. So you got to be paying attention to where you're going. You're looking at the road.
Maybe if we had an electric sign on all night, we could see them better. I'm kidding, of
But-
course. So that's about clear as mud, yes?
So as far as council direction then, and what, so this is
That's clear as
discussion
mud.
tonight, and it's been a good discussion, but we do need a direction to bring something back in the form of an ordinance that would be introduced at the next council meeting or when we have it ready and then adopt thereafter. So size is one of those.
To me, yeah, for me, I don't want it any bigger than an 8x4. I think we can, we guess they won't always be 8x4. We need a square footage, I'm guessing then, right? So I would say personally, no bigger than 32 square, however they want to dice that up.
Consensus,
Nope.
not unanimous.
No, I think we're torpedoing our downtown visioning project. The highway project we just discussed. I absolutely do not agree that there should be these signs in any form. And I'm not against business. I'm trying actually to be pro the future economy of this town.
Okay, well, the one thing I would say is when Councilmember Greeno gets back or we appoint somebody new, if they were to say, just take it as they sent it to us at 100 square feet and with no regulations on how far in between each one would go, that could be go against completely everything that you want. I would rather personally have it set up with the the least damaging in the event that you get absolutely nothing that you want, is what I would say personally. Because that's kind of how it was with the, well, we're about to talk about it next, the cannabis ordinance when it was first passed. I really didn't want it at all, but it's one of those things where the rest of the council would have voted yes anyway. So I tried to get as much as what I wanted to be done on it as I could. So it wasn't even that much.
Mayor, you brought up distance. That is another area of direction the council can give. Is there any thought as to distance between these signs?
How big's the city block?
300 approximately. Center line of street to center line of street is
They no more than one city block, so 300 feet. That's what I would personally say.
Is that on all lit signs?
Seems like TVs
That count light bulbs?
This is just the digital play. So like you can have a,
By that, because is it digital or is it offsite advertising? They're not
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it needs more specifics.
Well, in this instance, isn't that one that is up already? Both.
It is, the one that's up at the bowling alley is currently both. It is
Yeah.
digital and it is offsite advertising, but you could have, a standard sign that is offsite advertising. That's not digital.
digital portion that I was really talking about, the offsite advertising. It's your business, what you want to advertise something that's off-site.
Okay, so we're talking about distance between digital signs
That's what I was
regardless of content.
basically talking about, yeah.
Yeah,
But
for that.
everybody else, yeah.
Yeah, limiting digital signs. Yeah, we don't want to. I mean, every mile or something. I mean, not like Las Vegas where they're, every 4 feet.
Every mile, we're 2 square miles of city, so we can have 2. Or 3.
For perspective, from front to ninth would be 2,700 feet. And so if you did limit it to 1 every 300 feet, right, you would have, like you say, 1 a block. So that's about, you could have 9 on that stretch. 18 if you include both sides of the highway.
Yeah, so block is too,
That's
short.
That's too short. Wait. Ridiculous.
Granted, not many people are going to apply for all that permitting and then also pay fees, and
Yeah, I mean, the signs aren't.
it would make
cheap
me
either.
cry if I had to pay and file all that paperwork for one sign.
It depends. It's actually fairly easy to get. If it's, once a code like this is developed and it fits within it, it's actually fairly easy to get one of these signs because the coastal zone is very limited. And so the coastal's up Front Street is actually not in the coastal. So anything, when you're talking front all the way, come northbound, not going to be in the coastal. You don't have those requirements. Really just the city requirements and then Caltrans requirements. And Caltrans, we would have to try to make sure there wasn't anything that Caltrans would object to on this side of things. We tried to get clarification from Caltrans, and it's not as easy as what you might think. So it's really comes down to Caltrans objecting. And Ethan is here. Ethan and Bob from SHN are here, and they can address, once it's in, how easy would this be to actually get this?
Yeah, I would like to hear that. And also my understanding is when you're, I have a sign on my business that has off-site advertising, I'm probably getting paid by each one of those other businesses. So it's actually a moneymaker for me to have a sign on the side of my business that advertises whatever, because they're all going to be paying, unless I'm just a really nice person who offers free advertising. I'm not as, I do think we have a need in our community, as everyone knows, to know what's going on. And one thing I do appreciate about the fairground sign is that I wish they did less advertising on it, but one thing they do well is they do, for a fee, allow different groups to announce when there are special meetings or emergency information, safety information, musical concerts and things like that, obviously the fair. So I think there's a function to have a place in town that has that kind, and we have that through the fairgrounds that gives us information. But I think it's very different to be talking about just having basically a rolling advertisements that the business is getting paid for. I can see that proliferating really, really quickly.
And I'll let Ethan address the sign application. I do think you are correct. I think a lot of these sign companies come in, they will go to your business and they will try to sell you on just that, right? That the sign will pay for itself and you can get outside advertising to pay for it. And then that's how they get their foot in the door a lot of times.
Thank you, Manager Weir, Mayor, members of the council. If this were approved as is and is currently hypothetically implemented and an applicant were to pursue a sign similar to one that's already up or per these regulations, they would submit a sign permit to city staff. It would be reviewed administratively on the staff level. And we would calculate the proposed and existing square footage and check their allotment for the business. And if the math checks out, they could be granted it. We would also refer them to Caltrans, and they have a specific outdoor advertising department based in Sacramento that does their own permitting for LED signs along for offsite advertisement. For LED signs, Caltrans has their own signs department, cross-referenced by their electrical department. Depending on location, they have their encroachment department. They often refer to their safety department as well and review the signs and designs. And then may refer to the local project manager. All of these different departments we've contacted in regards to these revisions, and we kept getting bounced around to the other departments. And so that's kind of the process. I would assume it would take maybe 2 to 4 weeks on the city side to approve, and maybe a month or two at Caltrans to approve. That would be the permitting path. And right now, the city's sign fee is $50 or $75 based on the square footage. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Council? Ray?
Can I ask a question, Mayor?
Yeah, go.
So we're talking about, just so I'm clear on direction, that the 32 square feet would apply to digital signs. Is there, the way the ordinance is currently written, the off-site advertising signs would be limited to 100 square feet. Is the council interested in changing that number?
If the off-site advertising was on,
Say it's not, so if it's digital, it's limited by the 32 square feet, but if it's not digital, say
like a
someone just
billboard,
puts up.
like somebody put a 10 by 10 billboard on top of
Right.
their building.
Or
That's
on
what
a
our
vacant,
current,
or vacant lot.
yeah. Right. That's what our current ordinance is.
This draft that's
This-
before you.
okay. What is it? What's the off-site advertising?
Currently, offsite advertising is not allowed within the city limit.
Yeah, I think that's what's confusing is
It's two.
kind of
Yeah.
presenting us with two very different things, and it's, it's confusing us. I think we're actually agreeing more than
Mhm.
we're disagreeing. I don't think we have as much issue with just digital sign. Wish we had examples of what that means, but I guess what you'll hear me railing against is the offsite advertising specifically. That's the thing I don't want to see changed. Don't see any use for it. It's complicated because these are both in, kind of smooshed together.
In the sign in question does.
I guess I'm agreeing with some of the things they're saying about the digital signs. I'm disagreeing entirely about the offsite.
That makes sense. What you're saying.
Yeah, because I was just whispering to him, is that encompassed in this? And I'm just not familiar with that. Do we have a lot of that going on?
With the offsite advertising, just
Yeah.
in general?
No, because right now it's not.
It's
Correct.
just billboards, right?
Correct. Yeah, and those are all outside of town.
There was an older sign code that did allow it, and so there were some that were permitted in the past. That's no longer the case. If you remember on the vacant lot on Third and L, there's been some offsite advertising signs placed on there in the last, I would say, 10 years, probably been 6, 7 years ago now. And that was a static sign. So that is one of the lots that I could see if this were adopted and offsite advertising were to be allowed again. You could have a sign there. That would be a very strategic place to place a sign if you're a business. Because of just the highway frontage, right? The exposure that it would have. So that is one piece of it regardless. The bowling alley sign in question currently does both. So it has digital. You'll see messages about the bowling alley on it at times. You see public events. And even see birthdays at times, but there's also off-site advertising on that same sign. So that's where we need direction from the council, because if he were to have that sign as it currently is, he would want both. He would want offsite advertising and and digital. So that's why they're together. They don't have to be from a council.
So that being said, how do you feel about offsite advertising? Councilman?
I really don't know. It's kind of a new thing to me. I'm not,
And if the council wants.
I mean, if you pay for a sign, I mean, I guess the problem is it's a modern sign that changes, and we're just used to regular static signs, you know. But I think a sign, if you're buying a sign for your business, it should advertise your business. Not doing like commercials from the television or whatever on there. Hanes underwear or whatever, I don't know.
So with three of us, as it sits, we wouldn't be able to give you consensus on what we want to do as far as that part goes. It seemed kind of fair here. The offsite advertising part, that is.
Or you can give direction on, some additional, if you want additional information or various options, or, what do you need from us in order to make a better, informed decision? Instead of just giving direction as to, this is the number we want. Like, we could say, I'd like to hear more about X, Y, or Z.
Yes, this is kind of one of those instances where you either gotta trust the planning commission because they've spent hours on it, or is there any additional direction that you think they need to spend more hours on? Because they're doing most of the work and sending it to us saying, what do you think of that? And we gotta say, well, we might want to just make the signs a little smaller. What percentage is offsite advertising flashing on there?
Regulate that.
And then,
Sit down front. All right, let's see.
and yeah, do we really want them, every block all the way down?
No, I don't say every block. I wouldn't want to screen every block. That would be ridiculous. Ethan, how are the other, do you represent other cities? Yeah. How are your other jurisdictions handling signs?
So some of these regulations we use from Eureka. The rest we use from our older ordinance that no longer is in effect for Crescent City. Eureka's ordinance, they allowed it. They are both in the coastal zone, outside of the coastal zone, along the 101 corridor. However, the city of Eureka put a cap on all new signs, LED offsite advertising 5 years ago. So they've felt like they've reached their limit and then no longer allowing them moving forward. So the criteria that they use was also permittable through Caltrans. All those existing signs have been vetted through both the city and Caltrans regulations.
Ethan, just quick clarification for Eureka. So did they actually say that we've reached our limit and say we have whatever it is, say 50 signs? So 50 signs is their limit and they're not allowing any more than 50? Or did they say, we don't want to see this anymore, and through time, as those signs go away, that number will actually decrease through attrition? They're just grandfathered in at this point and then no more are allowed.
My understanding is the former or the latter. The latter. In regards to the city council, gave direction that they felt it was cluttered or over cluttered and wanted to place a hard cap, and then based on the decreasing of the signs, they may address it in the future. But As of right now, there's a hard cap on any new proposed signage.
For me, so not really a cap necessarily, it's just the ones that are existing or grandfathered in.
Correct.
and No more.
Correct. So the ones in existence are still allowed to do maintenance and replacements and or in kind, but no new.
No new locations.
Correct.
They've found them to be not exactly,
Mhm. So maybe that's a good compromise, having the planning commission come up with a cap.
Sorry, didn't have my mic on.
So maybe I'm throwing it out there, 2. I'm just trying.
I'm really surprised this got this far to us. I'm just shocked. I'm shocked that this got through the planning commission to actually be seeing things such as 100 square feet of display service within Crescent City city limits. That's what this is for, right? It's not for anywhere in Delaware County. It's specifically for our downtown.
The C2 zone.
I'm really shocked that this got this far. Again, I'm not against businesses. Absolutely believe businesses should have the right to advertise themselves, put a sign up saying I'm Candace's Flower Shop or what have you. But these are very different things. And I wish that everyone in this room had been, some people were, to the downtown vision planning meetings we had last week, where there was great consensus that we were moving forward in a very positive way, which also means economically in the economic future of this community. And I'm not seeing anything on this, on the item analysis that we were provided where it talks about number 4, additional regulations for the offsite advertising. I don't see any way that that's supporting what we're trying to do for the future of this community. So I just can't say yes to, I probably will lose, but I'm not going to say yes to any offsite advertising, period. I see so many examples we were shown by professional urban planners last week, and you don't have to go very far in your research online and in books. I've actually went to our library and books on urban planning, and they all say, these experts, it's not me, I'm not an urban planner, but I know how to read. And the urban planning experts of the United States say that this is not the way to go, that having visual clutter and visual blight makes you a more viable, sustainable community. Nobody says that. Nobody's been saying that for years. And I don't know why we would go against the advice of experts that we just received last week. We're paying this expert to give us advice, and one of the pieces of advice he gave us was specifically about thinking about signs and making them actually less garish, less electric. And now we're paying this man and his company, and now we're going to go against it the very next week. That makes no sense to me.
And just to add on a little bit of information, so the full scope of his contracts, Crandall Rambla is the consultant we have hired for our downtown master. The full scope would have included zoning and signage. We did not receive the full grant amount yet. It's caught up in some of the administration and EDA funding and whatnot. We're hoping that it will break loose this next year and we will have this piece. I will say that in some of my discussions, this signage piece, especially in regard to digital signs, is an overall concern, especially with the density of it and the just that type of atmosphere, that type of experience as you're coming through, especially our downtown. And so I will say yes, that has been part of our conversation. I wish that we would have had this ahead of this sign. This sign sort of, not to say sort of snuck in there, but it was an application that we didn't fully understand at the time it was approved, and now it is on one of the buildings that is there. In talking with them, you know, is one sign going to provide all of the clutter and whatnot and decrease all of the experience? That's for every person to decide, but one is a lot different than having one on every block or one on every lot. And so that's where the council, I think, does need to really think about an ordinance like this that might allow, you know, that kind of density versus putting a cap of one or whatever the council wants to do on it, or having a distance so it doesn't create that kind of environment. But I think Councilmember Tinkler is correct from a general downtown planning side of things. We're about the experience. A Vegas style digital sign, a type atmosphere can really change what that experience.
Okay.
Well, speaking of meeting attendances, I did attend 2 planning commission meetings where this topic was there. It would have been nice to have such a passionate argument there at that meeting. I didn't make the downtown plan meeting, but I did go to 2 of those. If we're doing like a roll call.
Yeah, I didn't go to either.
Score
We're
thing going on.
calling roll, but nonetheless, it is sitting here before us now. So,
I mean,
you
no
know,
one there was that against it.
yeah, but I think the size is ridiculous, and I think a very strict limit on the amount that we signs in general. And then you know, more I'm hearing people talk, I'm not really for offsite advertising also, because I think that's going to be the main draw for having one anyways, be advertising on the outside. What else? Sorry, what else did you guys want as far as direction? Size, distance, fee.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are really the big ones. The fee will be set by our fee schedule, and so the council can consider that either could get direction now or at a
Which
future
is
date on that. But it's
$75.
that's currently what it is. At 50 to 75, it's yeah, just the big categories: digital signs in general, offsite advertising in general, size of those signs.
Yeah, I am definitely, I've my position officially, I don't want to bring offsite advertisement into the city. That's where I'm at. I'm actually fine with the screens personally, but not a lot of them. And they need to be smaller, 8x4, 32 square feet. Maybe down the highway, no more than 1 every 3 blocks. That's where I'm at.
I don't have anything further.
Still clear as mud.
Just to clarify, Councilmember Oltman, your previous direction was approve as is.
Let's go with that.
Well, it can be.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to.
I mean, we were trying to address all the changes on here, but we just keep repeating the same stuff over and over again. So I don't have anything further to add to what we've already given direction on. And nothing else comes to mind. The size and not having them, you know, all in a row on every block. Maybe look at having them, you know, a mile apart or something. Or I do like the idea of a cap. As far as the advertising, if you invest all that money in a sign, you should be able to have whatever you want on it. It's my opinion. If it's allowed, it's allowed.
How much for a cap? Is it 2 originally?
I mean, 2 would be good, don't you think? And then it's kind of a compromise to me. Either 0 or 2. Because we really aren't that big of a city. You can have 1 on each end and that's that. And that's you know, Caltrans even lets them have it.
And the bowling alley one past Caltrans and everything's fine?
We're trying to get clarification on that, Ethan. Do you have any update on the current sign?
He is still in the review process. We have not had confirmation that it was granted or denied.
And generally speaking, it wouldn't put it up before you're out of that process. Is that not a correct statement? I mean, I probably want to spend $1,000 that cost.
Correct. This will be after the fact permitting,
Very good. Sure.
which is unusual.
Yeah. Okay. Honestly, I'm fine with the CAPA too, and anything can always be brought back to planning. Verified for later, I think, size. And that will matter about. They need to update these cameras, man. This mustache does not look good.
Okay, so the cap of 2, and then the other piece of that is, so there's just digital signs in general, which digital signs advertising just your business.
Mhm.
And so that'd be a cap of 2 of those.
Yeah, still screen.
And then do we allow offsite advertising?
I'd say I don't want to bring offsite advertisement into the city. Because then I don't want a big billboard to be erected on those in vacant lots that we have. Which is exactly what I would do. Make a parking lot with a giant billboard on it.
And then, so no offsite advertising is what I'm hearing, consensus. Maybe not unanimous, but 2,
I mean, 2.
okay? And then size 32 square feet, 4 by 8,
8 feet by 4.
okay? And then the cap of 2. The other.
2 in the city. But I mean, like, that they can go appeal for a variance.
What other jurisdiction do we have authority on?
I mean,
It's just the city, right?
But not in like a particular zone or anything.
yeah,
I mean,
like I don't want a screen out in off 4th and 5th Street down off of Wendell. Like that doesn't sound like zoning.
and this would only be in the C zone,
Yeah.
what we're talking about. So like, if you look at the zoning map, commercial waterfront. Attorney's microphone wasn't on, I don't think. So was that just in regard to offset advertising?
Correct. It's only C2 also.
It's only commercial, right?
Yeah.
Just that C2. So we pull up maybe the map again for batch.
Yeah, because there are a couple of businesses that kind of run not in the middle of residential, but are very close to it, and I wouldn't want a digital sign.
So if you look, this is the over map of it. Or is it, and maybe go back to just the previous one so you can see the whole thing. It's a little bit too thin. Back that slide. You can see it's just that orange 2.5. So the highway corridor and then over towards Safeway, Jed Smith, and then up North Crest. Area where Seaquake is and yeah. Surf Club, Surf Hotel, that whole area that is in the brown, that would not be allowed.
Oh, I see. Also allowed in highway service.
Highway Service District, Martha, is that pink in that little overlay? That would be south of town. This map's a little
Correct.
disjointed where they have that inlay, actually south.
That the Brenner building?
Would be the Renner Building. It would be the old pawn shop, Chevron South.
Station hotel.
Yep, the hotels are in there. Los Compadres.
Oh, sorry, up here. I see what you're talking about now. Apologies.
Yeah, it's
I
kind
was
of
like, I only saw one little pink spot right here.
yeah,
I gotcha.
yeah. That is the one little pink spot you saw was. I think it's continued south.
Gotcha.
So it'd be those two then.
Yeah, because it says in here, commercial manufacturing, but I don't think we have anything zoned commercial manufacturing. do we?
Okay. Yeah, that's what I stay by what I said. Or, yeah.
Apple two, size of 32 square feet, and offsite advertising still not allowed currently, as it is not allowed currently.
Sorry. Reached out to somebody about their opinion. They're not here today, so it's all good. Okay.
Okay, so what this will do then is staff will change the proposed ordinance. This will come back to the council in the form of an introduction, and we can have further discussion and or direction.
There will
At
be
that-
further discussion. Very good. Thank you. All right, next item. Item number 11, cannabis regulations update. Your staff report. Who's handling that?
City Attorney Rice threw the short straw on this one as well.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we are discussing updates to the cannabis regulations. Those are contained in our Crescent City Municipal Code, Chapter 17.95. Let's see, in April of 2020 is when the city council originally adopted these regulations. Currently, we have 5 storefront retail commercial cannabis businesses open to the public within the city limits. Over the past several months, the Planning Commission has had discussions over several meetings discussing various updates to the municipal code, including the number of retail businesses that should be allowed within the city, the location of those businesses, and enforcement regulations. So in this draft update before you, we have some new proposed regulations. Currently, we don't have a cap on the number of cannabis businesses. They suggested limiting storefront retail to 8 permits. Also not allowing any additional indoor cultivation permits within the city limits. We do currently have 1. And they would like to discontinue allowing that within the city. However, the current permittee would be grandfathered in if you adopted this, but no more permits would be issued. And then we made quite a few clarifications, including that permittees would be required to maintain a safe environment at their place of business, pay all their fees when due, and maintain their 15,000 surety bond throughout the life of their business. And then we increased some of the enforcement mechanisms and processes, including that a business must open its doors within 24 months of getting its permit. And that if a business closes its doors for 60 or more consecutive days, would be deemed to have surrendered its permit. We haven't had one in the second category necessarily, although we might have one soon. But if we have a cap, we want to, or if you had a distance, we want to be able to not allow these permits to just linger forever without actually getting used. 24 months was chosen because it does take a significant amount of time, probably on average, at least 12 months to get your permit through the state after you get your permit through the city. And then I know there was a store that just closed which I think technically still has an active permit. So this would just say, okay, once you're closed, we can take you off the list if there was a cap or if there was a distance requirement, which the planning commission did not suggest. So this is a map of the city that kind of shows you what's going on with cannabis retail. The dots are where we currently have retail businesses. However, the sort of translucent dot here, that one has a permit. It's never opened. It's been 4 years, I think, since they got their permit. So we don't think they're gonna open. So, that's where they currently are. I color coded this map a little bit so that I blacked out anything that's a school. In gray is any commercial property that would be too close to a school to site a retail establishment. And then the purple is currently owned and occupied by government. So they are currently allowed to locate within the C1, the C2, and the CW, and the highway services. Right. Yeah.
Or just maybe
So
go
none
back
of
to
this is
that,
north.
back to the other slide real quick. I think there's a rogue dot. There's one that's located on this map right on the corner of Peterson Park.
Oh, I don't know what.
I think that dot needs to go over off of Third Street, correct?
Yeah. You've messed with. I'll blame you. Yeah, that is a rogue dot. This one, I can't move it now, but this actually goes on 8.
Yeah, it goes off of, yes.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The dot that's in 16, is that active? Sorry, the one that would be the furthest to the bottom right now.
Down here, yeah, that's the,
It's Turf Club.
yeah.
So we have 5 active permits, but one of them is closed, no longer operational. Is that correct? It's 6 with only.
There was, okay, so there was 6, when I wrote this, there was 6. I did drive by the one location near the bowling alley and it's completely empty. So 5,
So it's 5 that are active.
yeah.
Was there, in respect to the planning commission, what were the reasons for, if we already have 6, not just keep, or I know that one's closed, but still we had, why did they not cap it at 6? Guess that's one of my questions. And my other question is, do we know, I know we don't have any control over that, but do we know how many are currently operating within the county as a total? Maybe that's not relevant, but
I'm not aware of any retail in the county right now.
Okay.
And what was the other question?
I'm sorry. I was just wondering, if we currently have
re-
6, why we didn't
And
just
the
cap it
reason,
at 6? Because that seems more than enough if they're having a difficult time staying in business even at 6.
Ethan has some
Okay.
recollection of that conversation.
Yes, at the time, the planning commission had taken into account 7 active permits because there was one that was in existence when they took on the conversation. So the intent was to have 1 extra space above existing. And that's why they had 8, because there were 7. And then we realized 1 closed and then another one closed and another one is inactive. So that's another consideration to take into account.
That's anything else?
It should be capped at 6, in my opinion.
And I would also like to add, just, this conversation in general was initiated by the planning. That's why it is before the council tonight. As when cannabis permits are are allowed or not allowed, it goes before the planning commission, and the planning commission at that point acts as a quasi judicial committee or quasi judicial approval board. And what their job is at that point, it's not to decide whether or not really to allow it. It's whether or not they can make the findings that it is consistent with the ordinance. And so there were several of these, but I think they felt their hands were tied, that, you know, maybe they didn't want this particular cannabis business coming in at this location because there was already one right next door. But when you look at how the ordinance was written, it didn't talk about distance away, or it didn't talk about number. It just simply said, is it in this zone? Does it meet these safety factors? And if they could make those findings, they had no reason, and they really shouldn't have denied it. So they didn't, right? They did their job. They followed the ordinance. So they wanted this to come back. And then as they discussed some of these things, those other pieces were discussed. But when it all came down, their recommendation was just to set this cap and also address the cultivation, the indoor cultivation. Those are the two main changes. Other things that were discussed and that the council could take up is, again, a density. So if you could have a distance apart, right? Do you want 3 or 4 all right next to each other, all in your downtown? So you could look at that. Do you want them in your commercial waterfront, area, that brown area? Do you want them right next to certain kid friendly activities like bowling alleys or movie theaters? Those are all things that the council could consider with this.
Yeah, I remember when we wrote it, that's what I wanted to do. I was up.
I agree with all 10 of these recommendations the planning commission has given us, except for I would limit it to the number one, the first recommendation limiting the number. I would limit that to 6. And then I don't know if, I think that would be something that sounds like our council would be willing to, I don't know if it's today, but to reconsider is some of those additional things that you're talking about, such I'm not in any way saying any of these businesses are doing anything illegal, but I have personally seen underage youth lingering at the doors of 1 or 2 of these places. And so I do have a concern about how that impacts our youth. And so I totally agree with you that taking another look at some of the locations would be appropriate. But I think if we just limit it to 6, that solves a lot of problems right there. That seems reasonable.
Yep, 6 sounds good to me. I like the rest of the 10 things are fine. 6, fine.
Yeah, 5 sounds better, but if we already have 6,
You know what?
we've got to go with that.
Yeah, well, I actually broke down 5, circling. 5 was the number that I
Yeah,
originally had said.
5 would be great.
Question, have we had any, 'cause I know there was always concern with indoor grows and their venting system and the smell. Have we had any complaints?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mainly with the cultivation
Right, yeah.
business, which they never really could meet the conditions of approval. I think the water, there was like a problem with the water and then the smell.
And if the council wanted to have a reduced number lower than 6, the council could, right? Any permit that is in would be grandfathered in, similar to signs in Eureka, right? I mean, so this would be the time. This ordinance comes back. It's quite the process, right, to bring an ordinance back, and you discuss it, and then it's introduced, and then it's adopted. So if there are any changes, now really is that time. So Chief Griffin is right here as well. If there's anything, if you want to add in this particular discussion or issue you've had.
I don't have anything to add. I haven't heard the same complaints about the juveniles in front of the stores. My experience with all the owners has been really positive. We've only had a couple of issues that I attribute more to the employee and the way they acted. There was one down Seafront that was an issue. There's a firearm brandished, but I think that was more of the attitudes of the employee, and it didn't reflect the store itself. They were actually really cooperative with us during that investigation. So I've been impressed, to be honest, with the stores and the way they handle themselves and the business they conduct. So I don't it's up to you to decide how many you want. I guess my marketing background says, I guess that, you know, the market, I don't know if it can handle that many stores. I had that conversation with a couple of people, but that's nothing to do with being the police chief as far as safety aspect or anything like that. So.
Yeah, and especially since we're not thinking there's any in the county, that what we're,
The only one in the county is moved into the city that I knew of, and,
County does have a tax, I believe.
or the
that-
last one, sorry, the last one. Yeah, and they do have a tax.
So they have a tax. The city does not have a tax. So it makes the city more desirable, I believe. Business stand.
so we have 5 active permits right now.
Yes.
And I personally, I'd like to limit to 5 then.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, me too.
And like everything else on that list was fine for me.
Okay. Yeah, we did, there's a significant section at the tail end that talks about different enforcement options when there is an issue, you know, suspension of the permit, revocation of the permit, or amending the permit, and exactly how we would go about that. So I know it's just procedure, but that's in there
Uh-huh.
also.
Gotta have the procedure for.
Seems like you would
Regulation.
want to also have what you guys were discussing about kid-oriented businesses, like if you have a gaming place, it's kind of a no-brainer not to put a pot shop next door to it. Where, you know, younger people are going to do role play games or computer games.
And
It would make, it makes sense not to put one next door to that business, right?
And I'll tell you what the argument was at that time. It was as long as the businesses are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Which if they're not, they're gonna lose the permit. It shouldn't be an issue where it's located outside of what California said it can't be. School.
Yeah, and originally, if you recall, we looked at a lot of different maps and different restrictions, and the issue became that the city's so small that once you start imposing some of those restrictions, there was nothing left. So you might as well, at that point, have just not allowed it. So it was tough to come up with, yeah, it makes sense once we put it on paper in the zoning. It was really difficult to find very much commercial property that was
Hard to
available.
put those specifics into an ordinance, right?
Yeah. You know, and again, my concern, I don't have a problem with the sale of cannabis. I think it actually has solved some problems personally, but I do have concerns about, it's a different product than it was when I was young. It can be very damaging to young people their brains are still growing and developing. So I have a lot of concerns about, making it seem like it's, I'm not wording myself well. I apologize. I understand the medical uses and some very positive things that have come from that research. So I don't want anyone thinking I'm against these businesses entirely. I just feel that for a lot of reasons, as a small community, it makes sense to limit the numbers. And again, you can throw tomatoes, but I'm going to bring up aesthetics one more time. Is I do have a concern if we had too many of these businesses, what does that look like to families coming to visit here? Does that give an image of a family-oriented town? I'm not sure. But I absolutely believe that it's all right and we should be, as the chief told us, as long as these business owners are obeying the rules and acting professionally, I think limiting it at 5 would be very reasonable.
We go ahead and take public comments.
Just a couple of things. Sam Strait County. I don't think you have 5 grocery stores in town. I don't think you have 5 gas stations in town. I don't think you have 5 pharmacies in town. Thank you.
Might have 5 pharmacies.
Kelly Fiola, City. Speaking on my own personal opinion tonight, I was disappointed when this got put into place originally, when the indoor cultivation was allowed right in our downtown across from Kid Town. So as a mom and a grandma, I'm completely against it being are being located next to where our children play and frequent. So I just wanted to give you that feedback. Thank you.
And I don't see any more public comments, so I'll go ahead and close public comment. Do you have enough to go with?
Sounds like council direction was basically change the limit to 5. Other than that, stay with planning commission.
Yeah, they're doing no more permits for indoor cultivation within the city limits. Yeah, that was the other thing. Yeah. All right, let's move on to item number 12, OPC grant application, coastal resilience. That word, strategy.
Absolutely.
Ain't gonna be able to say it.
Coastal
Sorry.
resiliency.
There we
Yes.
go,
And we have our community development director, contract through SHN, Bob Brown, with us tonight, as they are going to be taking the lead on this particular grant application and opportunity. So with that, Bob Brown.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Yeah, so before you, on the OPC grant, you've probably read some of the material that was submitted there, so I'll keep it short. And our public appearance person already gave my staff report. But so one is that SB 272 has passed, which requires cities and counties to come up with a sea level rise strategy. So state law 2034 sounds like a long time away, but when you finally get to doing the studies and figuring out, trying to get your LCP, your local coastal plan amended, it'll be upon us fairly soon. And right now there is funding that's being offered by the state. And so one reason why I thought it would be a good idea to pursue this grant would be for that purpose. But the other is that, but once these plans are come out, I mean, there's two parts. One is the vulnerability assessment. So what will sea level rise do in the city of Crescent City for the next however many years? I think 2150 is the timing on that. But and then what are the adaptation strategies? And we think about three things. We think about retreat, we think about defending, and adaptations. So there is funding with the OPC right now for implementation measures for those that do have a sea level rise resiliency strategy. So one of the other reasons, not only to meet state law and take advantage of the funding, but also to take advantage of the funding for implementation measures. Some of these implementation measures will come out with the hazard mitigation plan that is currently being prepared for the county and the city annex. So it kind of dovetails real good with that timing. One of the issues is that S-curve. We talked about the Caltrans grant and such. And so, you know, right now there was a resiliency strategy done for South Beach. So I don't think the city was involved in that, but the county and Caltrans and Elk Valley Rancheria were involved in that project. And so they came up with a strategy basically raising the highway elevations, recognizing that king tides will eventually start to close that highway down every now and then. And then thinking about some of the culverts and some of the interchanges with the water and such, and then putting a living shoreline along some of the beach areas there. So there is a plan, there's numbers that are in there and such. So anyway, a lot of going on that's kind of consistent. Caltrans also, you looked at the Elk Creek restoration project. And again, there might be an opportunity. That's where a lot of the sea level rise water will start to leak into the city and then spread from there. So some of the trail systems could be done and incorporated so that they would maybe serve as a levee, just raising the trail up a few feet or putting a perimeter trail around in addition to the interior trails. So anyway, I made an assurance with Eric and staff that we would be undertaking this work. I wanted enough money in there to help support city staff to be involved. Their concern is the capacity with all these other projects going on. And I have assured Eric that we would be doing the brunt of the work. We have a coastal engineer that is on staff, as well as a coastal geologist who also did some of the studying along Pebble Beach Drive. So bringing some expertise into the city. There's a big part of this is community engagement, which is both giving out information to the public as well as listening into their concerns and their solutions. And so that has been a big part of the state program that they wanted us to incorporate. And we see the Planning Commission being involved in that effort as well. Anyway, just ask it. I'm here for questions or ask you for your support on submitting this grant.
And as you were talking, I was rereading the fiscal analysis and it says SHN will be responsible for completion of this project. I was like, oh, it's in writing.
I picked it for Eric's benefit.
Council, anything?
I think there couldn't be a city on the Pacific Coast that it was more of a no-brainer to do this. Personally, I like your ideas of involving the public. I particularly, if there was a possibility, I would hope maybe that our high school youth would be engaged in this, not only as a learning opportunity in all sorts of ways, but I know there's a lot of anxiety from what I've understood in general with our youth about this issue. And when we look at some of these dates, sadly, I probably won't even be around, but they will. They have skin in this game, and so I really think this is an opportunity to show our youth that we're thinking about their future in this town. I feel a lot of hope that there are things we could do now. We don't want to just wait. We started this meeting ages ago with a gentleman expressing the very need to study this and not wait till it keeps happening and happening. So I personally am very supportive of this.
Do we have any public comment?
Global cooling, acid rain, the ozone layer depletion, global warming, climate change. I think that the idea that the coastal or that the seawater level is rising has sailed. Current science indicates that we're entering into a cold period of time, and that ice in the Arctic and in the South, the Antarctic, are increasing as we speak. The idea that we're going to be underwater in 10 to 15 years is absolutely ludicrous. I mean, it seems like we have an endless line of environmental grifts going on that expend a lot of public money, meaning taxpayers' money, that never seem to be realized. They continue to operate in the minds of certain individuals, particularly in this community, that they're factual and that they actually exist. Sea levels haven't risen over the last 8 years. They've actually declined. Temperature has actually declined over the last 8 years. We're entering into a normal pathway that the mean temperature evolves around up and down. No crisis about it, no human involvement to the degree that we've been told that exists. I mean, I know that you're going to go ahead and apply for this grant. You're going to get the money. You're going to spend it for no purpose. But keep in mind that, like I say, climate change, seawater levels rising, that ship has sailed.
I mean, if there's more ice, I mean, you put more ice in your drink, doesn't the liquid rise up? Just, throwing that out there. But I understand what you're saying, Sam. I would say there is a purpose though. I think it will help, in this last instance where we had the very small tsunami come through, there was definitely some worry about areas. We evacuated our Why can I not remember the name of our RV park? Lighthouse Cove, thank you. Lighthouse Cove RV Park. And, there was worry about, it rising up. And I think anything we can do to help mitigate that, I think it's good, personally.
I think it adds to our emergency plans. This could only add to that. It's certainly in my attention that, for example, this last small one where we were evacuating the RV park is that almost, I don't know for sure, but I'm going to guess 75% of our motel rooms are right down there on the South Beach area. I would at the very least like to see out of this plan some way that we're going to better accommodate those people, maybe even with something as simple as a trail to get the heck away from the beach fast when you're in one of those motels. So I think this is a public safety issue that we can't wait any longer to move forward on.
All right, I'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the council. If there's anything else or a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to authorize staff to submit a grant application to the Ocean Protection Council for development of sea level rise adaptation plans in compliance with SB 272.
And I second that.
All right, motion and a second. Please pull the vote.
Councilmember Altman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tinkler?
Yes.
Mayor Wright?
Yes. All righty, city council items, reports, concerns, referrals, council travel and training reports. Think there's anybody? Anything?
Nothing from me.
Okay, legislative matters, City Attorney Rice.
None this evening.
We're gonna go ahead and skip over the city manager report to go to the council direct. City manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Right. So one of the items the council asked us to bring back actually at this meeting was a letter to our senators urging them to reopen to be a part of reopening the government. That has since happened. However, I did want to just give a quick little update. And so I've actually asked our housing director, Megan Miller, to report to the council on any impacts that we're seeing on that program. And then through her relationships with the county, an update on the SNAP program and kind of how that's all playing out now that the government is reopened. So with that, Director Miller.
Thank you, City Manager Ware. Good evening. So thankfully for us, the Housing Authority, we were mostly unaffected by the shutdown. Our funding continued to come in, was delivered according to, our normal schedule. So there were no interruptions to the HAP payments for the landlords. Really, the only impact that we saw was we did not have access to HUD staff during that 5.5, 6 week shutdown. And then we have confirmed with the county that SNAP benefits are restored to their full value in the month of November. So everything is back operating according to plan there too.
All right, excellent. And then on the grant side for us as a city, it did stop things for a while. CDBG staff was extremely limited. They have delayed their 2025 NOFA. So it's was going to be released in December. Now it's pushed back until I believe it's February. So, there's some impacts on that side. The EDA grant that we received for our CEDS, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, and that's a partnership with the city, the county, and the harbor. Right before the shutdown, we did receive the award letter, but then basically it shut down. And so we weren't able to proceed with that. We're hoping that will start to pick up pace, but now there is a tremendous backlog on that side of things. So there's been some delays there, but we're hoping that those will get ironed out soon. Sort of the update on that side. I'm assuming I'm looking at Mayor Pro Tem Tinkler on this as far as the airport and the emergency, not emergency, but the essential services funding.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, they were going to cut it off. The last message had been if the shutdown had continued, they would lose that as of November 18th. So tomorrow. So luckily that did not occur. And I do really want to put a shout out to the employees of our airport, not only the manager, but also our TSA employees. for sticking to their job and doing a great job in spite of the uncertainty. And also, I was able to be at the airport when the owner of Advanced Air came. And luckily it didn't come to this, but he was clear that he wasn't going to, at a certain point, business wise, he would not be able to stay forever without being paid, obviously, but he was very strong about staying as long as he could if this had continued and they hadn't had the funding. So I think that's something we should all appreciate, is just some people were still doing their job in very uncertain times to make sure we still had airport service. And that includes the emergency services, of course, which are really, really important.
So I will also give a quick plug to the local food banks here in our community. FRC, I know in particular, delivered a lot of food during this time, during the uncertainty, much more than what they normally do, and had the staff to try to put that food out. And in fact, they reached out to us, and we had some of city crews for about an hour last Thursday. They had extra trucks come in. They didn't have the hands to get those on the shelves. We actually assisted them in getting that food on the shelf so people could have it.
I think a lot of ideas came up that we should hold on to and move forward with in the future, maybe next fall. For one thing, I was hearing ideas about people who have apple trees in their backyards and they can't possibly use all those apples, of having groups go out and collect various fruits and other things. Let's not wait for an emergency to do that. That just seemed like a really great no-brainer idea to me to feed our community. So I'm hoping we'll hold on to those ideas and implement them.
And so that's kind of the update on the shutdown side of things. We do have a major project that's going to kick off here locally that will have impacts on our streets. So I'd like Director Yeager to give you a quick synopsis on that. You might also hear the radio ad on KCRE and KPOD, which started today, I believe.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. We have one slide. Yes, so the first of the series, or as first as long been promised, we have done Measure S paving projects throughout bits and pieces. For example, part of the street at California and Oregon and Hoover, and I'd like to announce that Oregon Street is now open for the first time in the history of ever. So Measure S has done lots of stuff, but this is our first large project, and we put this out to bid, got 4 bids. ST Roads out of Reading, a tribal affiliated contractor, was low bidder. They do have local connections to our town. And so they put out last week, as they said, they've been true to what they've said. They put out 72-hour advance notice of no parking zones. They put those barricades out last week, and people said, wow. The barricades are all over the place. And what the barricades said, the people didn't read them. They just panicked. Said no parking. Said that starting today, that there was going to be a shutdown till 5 o'clock this afternoon. Starting today through an end date in November. I think it actually went to December 5th, which we can't obviously do that. But anyway, long and short of it is ST Roads did show today with about 8-man crew, and they did some prep on most of the blocks shown. The big blue line there is 8th Street. The 2 blue lines above the big blue line is C and D Street by Joe Hamilton and the Masonic Lodge. We've got 2 blocks of 7th Street on there, one right next to the Danco Housing Project, and the other one's by Chetco Federal. And then there's a block running into Peterson Park that's just absolutely horrible asphalt. So we took care of quite a bit of the worst stuff. Well, there's lots of worst stuff, but anyway, so that's the project as a whole. ST Roads work today. They'll be out there again tomorrow for the public to know that they're out of town. So they are replacing or changing like approximately 100 barricades and signs we put up tomorrow morning, letting the public know. Obviously, due to Thanksgiving next week, that they're not going to come back next week and pave. They need a 4-day dry window, relatively dry window to do the paving. I guess it could be a rain day in there, at least stretch it a week, but there's 4 days of paving to be involved. The plan as of 6:38 this evening on my phone, I got confirmation they're planning on being here on December 1st, weather permitting. We're hoping that the wonderful dry week. We will update. We've put out, I don't know if it got placed today because I didn't get a notification, but we have the channel message board should be placed on 9th Street. And we'll try to update the schedule that way. The new barricades that are going up or the new signs on the barricades informing people of traffic will say December 1st through December 5th. And so that's the week, weather permitting, of course, is being December in Crescent City. Weather permitting, that's the plan for that stage of the project. So 4 days of grinding out the road and paving it back. It's about 1,400 tons. So a little less than 400 tons a day, which is pretty easily done. So they'll get the paving done. And then from there on, the roads, the parking will be back open. They've got to come back in and what we call raise the iron, which is readjust the manholes and the valve boxes to grade and pour concrete collars on them. That's probably 3 or 4 days worth of work. And that'll happen subsequently. But once it's paved, we're good to go in terms of traffic. And they'll spot fix those valve boxes. And then the final step would be some striping. So this project basically, or not basically, I'll make the assumption this project will not be complete by the end of December unless we get lots of good weather. But we do plan on getting all the paving done this month. So just kind of an update alert to the public that we will be good to go in terms of no parking restrictions until December 1st through the 5th. And if we need to update for weather, we will. So that's the update on the project. Any questions about what we're doing or yeah, all happy. But anyway, it's a good, you want to click real quick, Taylor, click next slide.
I thought you said one slide.
I did. But Mr. The side over here is mentioning, so what that slide, and we only, whoopsie, that's the Measure S contribution to the paving of the city. So and there is the stuff in California and Hoover, and there are prior projects that I've done previously that aren't on that, but that's basically from the spring of 2025 through next summer. And the pink in the bottom corner is potential Measure S contribution to Front Street. And the red lines are what we just looked at in blue, and then the green lines are what I've got planned for next spring. So that's just the point of that, and don't memorize it, but the point of that is that we're starting to make visible progress on, as promised for Measure S to fix our streets. So. Voila.
There's not very much planned for summer of 2026. I mean, it's substantial. I know it's a real substantial part. So I shouldn't say there's not much. I was just curious if we know of other places that, for example, there's a couple of cul-de-sacs on Gaynard Street that are just off-road at this point.
There is plenty. So the map that you're looking at here is limited to what the anticipated budget was going to be. So what happened, I'm not, keep this brief, but the orange lines up there, the two on the left side and the one over by, that was performed by Dutch Brothers, those were actually supposed to be part of this first contract. We got that done with other projects and mobilizations, taking advantage of situations. So the first project, about half of the red on this slide, the red line project was supposed to be the next project. And so we're actually going further with the dollars than anticipated. So there is the final project is North Crest Drive, and that's had a chunk of 8th Street with it. So right now the rest is not planned. There is plenty. And there's no shortage of streets that we need to fix. But this is just a quick blush just to kind of appreciate where we've been and where we're headed.
And I think the other part of this map that's a little off is the green says planned for spring of 25. That's actually planned, I believe, for spring of 26.
Oh, correct. I'm sorry.
And
Yes.
so the green is going to happen in the spring of
Yes.
26, then the pink in the summer of 26, right? And then the blue out there is that's the fall of 26, which might be needed a little bit for that Front Street area that we talked to the council about. So that.
Yeah, or it could be the summer of the following year, same fiscal. We'll see how that, more than likely that will probably be the spring or summer of.
But that's the big part of it is all that green's actually happening.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was a typo by my assistant. Blame him. He does graphics better than I do, so, but yes, that was the spring of 26. So that's the next project that will be about to bid next few months.
Very good. Thank you, Director Yeager.
All right, so there are a few things, but one thing I definitely want to plug is the council vacancy. So we do have a vacancy. The application window is now open. We'll be accepting applications through the end of November. So probably, and I think the end of November is actually a Sunday. So City Attorney Rice and I were discussing it. We might go ahead and set a date as December 1st, 5 o'clock, December, be a Monday. So that is out, and then we will be most likely conducting interviews that next week with the council, and we would be looking to swear them in then at the regular meeting on December 15th. Council vacancy schedule. A few other things just to quickly run through, and our recreation director, Kelly Fiola, has been very busy. And so we've announced a new window decorating contest for all downtown businesses within the city limits, all businesses within the city limits. So you can submit entries. You can go on social media and submit your entry there at the Public Works desk by December 1st. And so the winners will be announced at the Light Parade, which is December 5th. So definitely put that on your calendars as well. If you're interested in having a parade entry, you can go to Potter Real Estate and you can get your parade entries in there. If you're interested in being a vendor at that event, so again, it's Friday, December 5th, contact Kelly Fiola at City Hall. And council members, if you guys are interested in being in the parade, please contact us as well on that. City crews are going to be busy in the clock tower area trying to get that all set up. Always a busy time of year trying to dodge in and around storms and get it all decorated for the community. So they're going to be working on that. Our pool, we have added an adult senior exercise class on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1:45 to 3:15. That's through the end of the year. So if you are interested in that, please go to our pool schedule. It's going to be a special time that's dedicated just to that adult and senior exercise program, especially as the kids are off school. The recreation times get pretty crowded. So this will be a little carve out just for that. And then wanted to just let people know that our spa and our sauna have been down. Those parts have been ordered. And so we don't have an ETA on when they're going to be up, but we are aware our crews are on it and parts have been ordered. And then the last thing is just a thank you to Councilmember Tinkler, who was able to attend the Veterans Day luncheon celebration, and also just a shout out to our community as well. Veterans Day in the parade, I thought went really well. Fire department was there. The flag was draped over 8th Street with the ladder truck. You had the parade itself was led by Chief Griffin, and then all of our veterans that came out on that particular day to be honored. It was good to see. Good to honor them and have our community come out and celebrate. And then the luncheon I thought went really well as well. And we had Mayor Pro Tem Tinkler read the proclamation. That is it.
Alrighty. Quick question for you. You said the Public Works crews are going to be doing all the decorations. We're not going to have public helping this year?
We were looking at it, and just logistically, it's going to be challenging for us. So if there is any volunteers that are out there, please come and see us. We can have them fill out a volunteer form, and we can, I'm sure, arrange some things to be done. And so we'll always take the help, but there's not going to be a particular day and time this year.
Very good. Thank you. Alrighty. Council, anything else before I adjourn us? Alrighty. I will adjourn us to the next regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Crescent City, which is Monday, December 1st at 6 p.m. right here at the Cone Center. Thank you.